for quite some time. So that there are some predatory issues in the industry on that. There are some folks that want COD. There are other folks that don't want COD. But it's definitely a conversation that has gained more traction recently. So it would go from producer, processor to wholesaler to retailer, those four. Marijuana changes all the time. When I said alcohol is static, marijuana is not static. I will tell you that the marijuana licensees are some of the most creative people I think I've ever met in the world. They find loopholes, they find ways of doing business, and they're very creative in how they do that. That's not a knock on them. They're survivors, to be honest with you. And so they're very creative. So we're always adapting. We've had multiple stages of compliance from the very beginning, where zero tolerance started out for probably the first 3 years, everything. We canceled license for things we would warn people for today. And most states did this. They came out of the blocks with zero tolerance. And then we had Senate Bill 408, I believe, and that changed what we could cancel licenses for in the state of Oregon. It basically put us on a track that diversion and very, very serious violations were the only thing we could cancel licenses for. The industry pushed that bill, and now the industry is talking to me about, well, I think we need to go back to some more accountability on certain violations, because diversion is such a big thing. We need to hold our licensees accountable. So they went from you're too hard to make it soft to, hey, we want it back hard again. And that they're open about that. And I'll talk about diversion in a minute. So I would tell you marijuana is difficult. It's ever changing. It's very complex. When you look at a company structure of investors in a marijuana industry, you could have companies on the Canadian Stock Exchange that you're investigating in a license process, and that doesn't generally happen if mom and pa want to own a liquor store or they want to own a 7-Eleven. So it's very complex on that side, and they have to show us their funding sources. And so marijuana is just a different animal that I don't think they'll ever be the same, maybe in 150 years from now. But when I hear folks to say, hey, they need to be exactly the same, I don't see that happening anytime soon. I really don't. And so they're just too different. It's like, they're polar opposites, and they have different federal rules and they have different state and local rules that will make it almost impossible to do that. The next topic is the issues and concerns that I see, and I think this is where we'll get most of the questions and spend most of the time. The first one is diversion and inversion into the recreational market. It's at an all-time high. Marijuana prices are very low within the industry right now. The federal government, when I mean that, the Department, Drug Enforcement Administration, Treasury, BLM, have all been active in serving search warrants on our licensees for diversion of marijuana across the country. I think in August, I'm going to give you a number that is low. There was at least 15 search warrants served on 15 licensed locations that are our licensees by the federal government for diversion of marijuana across the country. The number of calls for marijuana investigations are up, and diversion continues to be a growing problem within our marketplace and our licensees. There's issues with acting upon those investigations. We get notified when a search warrant is served, and generally when a search warrant is served, they will show up, they will seize every bit of marijuana, all the camera coverage, the computers, all the basically everything that's evidence, and they will leave. And the licensee is left there with the search warrant, and then they report it to us, and we are unable to get the details, enough details for us to take action on the administrative side because the investigation is still ongoing. And so we have had complaints recently of licensees where one day they've been wiped out. Every bit of their marijuana was taken. Some people were taken into custody, and the next day they're out there planting marijuana, replacing what they just did. And we struggle to get information from law enforcement. Most folks are like, well, why don't they care about the license part? They're working on a multi-state, multinational drug investigation that may go into other areas of criminality, and our licensing process really doesn't mean much to them. And frankly, if they share information, we would have to make it public in our licensing process, and it may provide information to the people they're investigating that they don't want to. And so it's been very difficult to get information on some of these. Go ahead, Commissioner.
So eventually those cases are adjudicated. Do we get information once?
Yeah, we follow those. We track them. It's been taking 2, 3, sometimes 4 years for us to get the information, but we do track them. We have more luck on state police and local county sheriff cases. And we've been able to push those through the system faster. But it's been a problem lately with the lagging of those cases. But yes, we do track them and we do keep track of them. But I keep telling the industry, like, here's the issue is the search warrants. I'm open with them, hey, this criminality is happening. They're like, well, you didn't cancel any licenses. I'm like, well, there's a reason for that. It's not that I'm making it up or anything else, but they definitely had that conversation. We have had licensees call and say, hey, my neighbor just got raided by the DEA and they took everything and they're planning again. How can that be? That my competition's doing something illegal. Why are you letting them plant and start all over again? Like they're like, that's not fair. Go ahead,
So
Commissioner.
when you say issues and concerns, diversion, what does diversion mean?
Means marijuana that is taken out of our legal system and either taken out and sold unlawfully in Oregon or somewhere else in the United States. Yeah, we have multiple cases in the last 3 months where licensees are caught in other states with product and even having their metric tags on the product, and they're selling them in other states. Happens.
Survival method.
Well, the price, and so oversupply, I told you how many licensees we have on the producer side. We do a supply and demand report that's reported to the commission, and, anywhere from 3 to 7 years of supply after every harvest season for everybody in Oregon. The product price is way down. I hear $1,200 a pound to $600 a pound at wholesale level. You cannot grow it for $600 a pound. And so I think people are getting desperate and they're trying to stay alive, and things are happening that shouldn't happen.
So if it's a matter of overproduction because of the number of licensees, do we not have the ability to claw back the licenses?
So we are in a licensing moratorium where no more licenses can be issued due to this fact. The legislature impacted that, but we have no way to take away somebody's license. It'd be the same thing as, say, if Kurt owns a restaurant, me going to him, say, hey, we have too many liquor establishments. I'm taking your license. How do you pick and choose which ones are which? The industry has talked to me a little bit about why doesn't the OLCC offer 25 grand to buy a producer license back? Why are we not? Because revenues are down, which would lower the tax rates, which is less money to the state. If prices were higher, you would make your money back. I haven't done that analysis, but they're very well aware that we have too much supply. And so that's why the moratorium came in. But we are not losing, we do take licenses every year, but we haven't dropped enough that the supply will ever be low enough where the prices will go up. So we basically have a glut of marijuana in the industry. And that's why somebody integrated can sell their product. Somebody that's not integrated may have problems getting their marijuana on the shelf.
General fund money be set aside for license forfeiture, like voluntary license forfeiture?
So that would,
$1,000. So
yeah. Commissioner, that would take a change in statute because the tax money is already spoken for and it's divided up. I don't know the exact numbers, but some of it goes to the city, county, some of it goes to state. Treatment is a big part of that money. And then some of it goes to law enforcement. So that would have to be a conversation. I think the industry is trying to have that conversation at some point, but then you come down to who's getting out. it's the idea that it's not me, I want somebody else out.
What's inversion?
Inversion is when somebody grows marijuana outside of the industry and they bring it in, and we actually have that happen where you can only grow so much as a producer. So they have a supply, and so they'll bring some more from the outside and actually sell it into the marketplace. And that does happen on occasion. We've had several search warrants where ex-licensees were growing and providing marijuana to licensees within the marketplace. It doesn't happen as much, but it does happen. So that is a complex conversation that is very difficult to figure out in one day, for sure. Next one is burglaries, thefts at recreational marijuana licenses. We have had over 50 burglaries since January 1st of licensed premises. These are midnight break-in to licensed establishments and steal as much marijuana as they can and leave. These are mostly in the Portland metro area, but they've spanned as far as Deschutes County, down to Lane County. We have a staff member that is working with law enforcement right now on this issue. But thousands of pounds of marijuana have been stolen out of the system and obviously diverted to other locations. We've coordinated working with the Multnomah County District Attorney's Office on these cases, but there is fear in the marketplace of being, I'm one burglary away from losing my business. These folks are very organized. We have tons of video of these groups, and they're pretty much for lack of better terms, a professional burglary outfit that is targeting our licensees. I am also seeing an increase of daytime burglaries where people or robberies where they're coming in mass with weapons and stealing marijuana. I got notice of one yesterday sitting at the back desk where there was another one in the Portland area. Obviously, licensees don't have access to banks, and marijuana is on the premises to cash crops. So they are a danger at all times. So that is something that we're working hard on with law enforcement to try to solve these burglaries. And then obviously working hard with law enforcement to solve the robberies that are happening.
You want to describe some of the burglaries, just because I have friends these aren't normal burglaries.
No, they're not.
Unbelievable.
No, they're not. So I don't want to go too much into it, but generally speaking, they will steal a vehicle or two, usually a van, a plumber's van or something like that. They will crash one car through the side of the building. They are in and out within 2 to 3 minutes. There's multiple people, anywhere from 8 to 15. And they are in and out, and they're very organized. They wear masks. They clear the buildings with weapons, and they're in and out very fast. They generally know where to go, and they've never hit a dry hole. And so there's definitely a lot of complexity to this, but it's very well organized for sure. And it's scaring if you were in that industry, they have come back to some locations up to 3 times. And so the industry's like, what do I have to do? Do I have to stand there and weaponize myself and wait for them to come back? Or how do I protect myself? And so it's a pretty complex answer, or complex issue. Law enforcement is working on it. We get updates. Our folks, our staff members done a great job of collecting video, collecting evidence, and comparing cross-jurisdictional information. But the commissioner's right. These folks are very organized, and they know what they're doing, and they're hitting a weak target market. Like, it's if I get that marijuana out, it's worth anywhere from $25,000 to $4,000 a pound on the East Coast. And if I can get 100 pounds in one night, I've made a lot of money. So they're very efficient.
What's our role in this?
Huh?
What's our
So
role?
they have to report it to us, but we collect information. We collect video. Like we have a former narcotic detective who's doing he's collecting. What happens in law enforcement in a lot of times is, so you'll have the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office, you'll have the Portland Police Bureau, you'll have the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office, you'll have the Lane County Sheriff's Office, Eugene PD, Salem PD. We're connecting all those people. We're having weekly meetings and inviting all the detectives in to share information. And then we collect information, we collect videos, we collect license plates. We can positively identify through video the same people at different locations. We've been coordinating. We're not police officers, but we have access to a lot of the information. So we're coordinating it, and we basically are doing that to produce basically the data for law enforcement to do their job. And then we're coordinating meetings with the DAs. So we're more of a coordinator, but we're more of a protecting the legal market type of work. And if we briefed you, you'd be really impressed with the amount of detail that we have on these burglaries. And the much time that we've spent trying to get these stopped. There has been arrests made and they still continue. So it's definitely a pretty large group.
Is it like a specific ethnic group or a specific
No.
gang or?
So gangs are a tough word in Portland. We know some folks are affiliated with certain groups, but it doesn't seem to be like normal. It seems to be more of a group of criminals that are banded together, to be honest with you, to basically carry out these missions. Yeah, it's pretty interesting for sure. Alcohol compliance rate, I know the commissioner to my left basically said alcohol's at 78%. It is stagnant at 78% compliance rate in alcohol. We increased fines, nothing happened there. Coming out of COVID, it was even lower than that because we had a 2-year period where we couldn't do minor decoy operations, but we have plateaued at 78%. Even when we doubled our minor decoy operations, we're still at 78%. I've talked about liquor stores and other places and wineries and liquor stores in 2024 were very low. Liquor stores were at 58% compliance rate, but they only were chosen for 12 decoy operations because it's randomized. And so we're not able to say, okay, we're just going here. We are trying to figure out how we can get that rate up. We have not been issuing criminal citations because we're able to fine people with service permits. Their first fine is $350 if they have a service permit and they sell to a minor. It's $4,950 or a 30-day suspension for a licensee, and we still have a 78% compliance rate. And so we've been like, how do we turn this around? We've been thinking about different ideas. The sheer number and the getting out there with licensees and having these operations has not affected that 78%. It just sits at 78%. So obviously that's something on my mind. I'd like it to be over 90%. That's our goal set by the legislature, but we haven't been able to move it. You know, I don't know if raising the fines even more would do that. You think about, say I'm a server and I'm 21 years old, I'm a waitress in a bar, I would think $350 would get your attention. But it doesn't seem to be doing that. We've had some locations where we go back and the same person would sell again within 3 weeks to another minor decoy. So
Clearly the server who's receiving the consequence of their action.
both of them are. So we do both. And one of the things that's important, and I think what we never used to do is always find the licensee, and we did not really do much with the person selling. And so we do both now. So if you see a case where a licensee has a contested case that comes forward for a violation, know well that we have already issued a violation to the person with the service permit that sold, but that hasn't affected the 78% rate either.
At what point do we take away the permit?
You have to do it, the rules, we would have to dig into the rules, but there are ways to take away the permit, but generally speaking, with randomization and rechecking, we never check somebody that many times because there's so many licensees, if that makes sense. We have had a couple where we actually ended up with 3 sales from a minor at a grocery store in the last year, and they were pending cancellation. They were
Limited to randomization?
Yes,
Is it
Yeah.
a fee?
it's in the statute.
randomization is in the statute?
Yes, sir.
Mm.
Any place over 20,000 in a city, over 20,000 requires it, but it also says in the next paragraph that, that we should randomize and try to select as many different varied permits or licensee types to get a varied response. I actually asked DOJ for legal advice if I could deviate from that, and they said I cannot. So I was thinking on the same lines of you, as like if I have a problem area or place, I would like to just concentrate on that, but it would be difficult, but I cannot do that as we speak.
Is it a rule that can be created?
No, it'd have to be a statutory change.
Yeah, is it a legislative concept that we might want to
Yeah,
propose?
think about as we go forward. Just wanted to put that on your radars. Marijuana businesses, even in a moratorium, we are behind on licensing because there are so many change of ownership, change of location applications. It is like a brand new application. So if Commissioner Melitas owns a marijuana license, he can sell it to somebody and they can move it. And that's how businesses are getting into the industry still. And it requires us to do another, what we call a combo, because it's two things. Licensing, we are the numbers, even though we're in a moratorium, we're doing hundreds and hundreds of licensing actions in a moratorium because that is how many times the businesses are changing hands or adding investors.
We have to have permission to sell the license?
No.
Is that,
Well, they can't sell it. So they're selling their business and they're selling the license, but like if they're in trouble, like if they're selling it because they're in trouble, that generally won't go through. But if it's just Matt's deciding to get out of the business, then you would have to sell it. And then basically the new person would apply for that license, and that happens all the time. And then you have to think about, well, if it's a money-strapped industry and people are having problems, then people are selling licenses and bringing new investors in. Frankly, a lot of investors have said, no, I'm not going to spend money in this industry right now because things aren't going well. So there's a lot of change of ownerships. And the only reason I bring it up is that we would think in a moratorium we wouldn't be busy, but we're extremely busy because of that. You know, it didn't stop our workload at all. In fact, it increased. Another thing to be on your radar is hemp and THC drinks. There are other states that have THC drinks. If you go to a bar in Minnesota, you'll get a regular distilled spirits menu and then a THC distilled spirits menu. And when I was in Minnesota, the THC distilled spirits menu is bigger than the alcohol distilled spirits menu. And you can drink both. And so Oregon does not have that. But there are folks that probably want that. And so increasing THC drinks is something I think that will come before the commission. It could be in the next session. I don't know, but I definitely is something to be on everybody's radar to think about.
So there's a THC infused drink.
Yes.
Alcohol
Nope.
and THC.
No, just straight THC.
Right.
So they're drinking them at dinner or at the bar instead of alcohol.
Right.
Yes.
but they still have the same
Oh, yeah, they're.
effect of,
Yeah, they have, the same like 21% THC. That basically how they're labeled in the menus is this one is from some type of marijuana and it's 17% THC, basically your drink. So you're drinking your marijuana instead of your THC instead of ingesting it other ways.
and DWE testing is the same?
Huh?
DWE testing is the same
For
for,
Dewey?
yeah,
No, it's not. So Dewey, there's no presumptive number of marijuana intoxication, whether blood or urine in a sample. The only way a police officer can prove somebody driving under the influence of controlled substance is just to show impairment and then couple that with a urine test that shows that that was in their system. But alcohol is the only drug that has a level of impairment that is assumed at a certain level. Yeah, that's another part of my life. So that's an issue. THC drinks, hemp drinks. The hemp industry is very active and some of those items have THC. The administrative hearings workload, when we do a cancellation case, that is such a much bigger case than say simply a case for a minor decoy operation. And so those take time and they're usually contested through a hearings process with a lot of back and forth with the attorney. So they're taking a lot of time. And so that is slowing our response times down in HD. And then the last one, frankly, is just the financial stress in the recreational marijuana industry. You know, you will hear it from them. They will say it. This industry is financially stressed. There's definitely difficult things coming down. We're having to make hard decisions. It's very hard to make a living in this industry. The margins are very low, oversupply, and they're struggling and they're asking for help. I mean, they do ask for help, like we need less regulation. They're asking for less regulation at the same time, diversions are going up. And so it's very difficult when they want to change a rule that I can change a rule and allow them, say, one of the big ones obviously is seed to sale tracking. They say it costs them time and money to track everything. But at the same time, that's the only way I can prove the diversion cases is knowing what they had and didn't have. So you have, it's almost like an internal war in the industry where there are good operators that are trying to survive and want to do all the right things at the same time. And I'd love to be able to deregulize for them, but at the same time, my numbers are telling me I have more diversions and more bad things happening. How do I meet in the middle? And that's really the struggle that I live in every day. Because our job is to help the industry, and survive at the same time, being their big brother, making sure they're not stepping out of line. But that's a difficult place to be in. It's like a parent at some level. You love them, but my God, you can't let them step out of line. So that marriage there is difficult and it does create some natural tension. But we do try very hard to look at the rules to make sure that rules that were in place and made sense 10, 12 years ago might not make sense today. We are changing rules, but it's a tough living agreement between us and the industry as we speak because of the things that are happening. And I know that you will receive phone calls from the industry about, hey, we want this to change or whatever. Working with the industry, there's an open door. We talk. We definitely are, talking things out, but there's going to be some difficulty there. And I'm not sure how to fix the diversion issues that are going on, the oversupply. There's some big ticket issues that really affect everybody's bottom line. And it's not a one, if I pull one lever, I'll fix everything else. It's very complex and it's very integrated and it's very difficult. I know Commissioner Melitas has been, somebody that I've talked to over many years about this issue, but it's very complex. It's not a simple fix. So I know one of your talk is how do we support the cannabis industry and the businesses? It's a really tough question because there's no one single answer, but it is struggling. There's no doubt about it. And so how do we look at that? And I guess that's your question is I was hoping to come here today and provide you information on what I see, the work that we do and how we do it, and then some of the issues that are right in front of us today and how we do the best job of regulating the industry at the same time, making sure that public safety and health is a high priority. And it's a real balancing act and it's not easy. It's one of the hardest jobs I've ever had in that context to try to figure out how to make it all work together.
Like a lot of this could be alleviated through federal regulation or federal adaptation. Is there any conversation about that with all of the states getting that?
So no, so we do work, we have NABCA. You guys have NABCA. I say you guys because I do marijuana, but we do have CANRA and we talk about that. But my point of making it a Schedule III controlled substance won't change the fact. And then you will have states that won't adopt it. And so, some of the things that it's just difficult. And then to be honest with you, the hemp bill, the farm bill really made it difficult to enforce hemp rules and regulations because it treats it like a crop when it can be a controlled substance when it's concentrated. And so it makes it even harder. So the federal government, to be honest with you, has made it harder with the farm bill than easier. You'll hear the Cole memo was a guiding principle document when marijuana was first legalized. And it basically said to the states, don't divert it, we're gonna leave you alone, but don't divert it. Make sure it doesn't get to kids. Make sure there's no guns involved, weapons involved, and make sure it's strongly regulated in your state. And basically, we'll leave you alone. The Cole memo's been rescinded. And so there's really no guidance from the federal government on what you should or shouldn't do. And, basically the only time I've seen them interfere is when somebody is selling or distributing marijuana in other states. Basically, so that's when they're interfering. But other than that, there's not a lot of conversation.
A level, right, the income received from cannabis and marijuana you can't deposit it into a
No,
bank.
no,
So could
they money launder it.
change at all, or?
So the banking, there are some credit unions now that will bank marijuana businesses. We have folks that actually answer questions of credit unions and gain access to their metric accounts to allow them to see what type of business they are doing. And that's obviously by consent, but there are some banking, but one of the biggest hurdles is banking and cash industry. You wouldn't have as many burglaries or robberies if they were able to put it in a bank. And some are able to do it through a credit union. But a lot of banks are concerned about it being in controlled substances. The Department of Revenue had to put in a window for marijuana cash at the Department of Revenue, and there's a state trooper that guards that during business hours because people are bringing in cash to pay their taxes and bills. So that is a problem, but I don't think it's the number one problem right now.
Sure.
Yeah,
Should
but
be.
it is an issue. If somebody knows they have a couple $100,000 in a safe somewhere, that's bad guys look for opportunity. That's an opportunity for sure.
It seems like we could chip away at something.
Yeah, that's federal though. That's the federal banking stuff that gets in our way. And that's why it's difficult, but you're right. It's a 20-legged stool. That's one of them. That's really the way to look at it. So I'll answer any questions, but I hope I kind of gave you some thoughts about what we're seeing. Sure.
Would, at the state level, or the rate, kind of the legislative level, what percentage of people do you think feel like the market just needs to take care of this?
Yes.
And people just need to go out of business. State needs to continue not issuing. And here, 5, 7, 10 years from now, we'll be to a point where we have the right balance.
So I'm going to go back to the start. That's how everybody wanted it. That when it began, everybody could get into the industry, low barrier for entry, give everybody an opportunity, and business would sort itself out. That's how we started out. Now people are in the industry. They don't want that. So there's a majority, not a majority, but there are legislators that are like, this is just like the painting business down the street. The best will survive, and we need to stay out of it. And so that's definitely something I hear is like, this is no different than any other business. Strong business will survive if they have financial backing. If they don't, then they won't. And that's not the state's issue to get involved in. So you definitely see that and hear
Taking
that.
a newsie down to the other painting store though and taking a product.
Yeah, that could happen, sir.
Is there any public safety risk of us allowing that market mechanism to do its work? Especially if it's forcing a lot of vertical integration.
Yeah, I would tell you that the oversupply of marijuana is folks got into the industry to do things right. There were some that were doing both still, and no doubt about it. But the oversupply and the low prices, as the prices dropped, I've seen diversion increase. So yes, I think there's a definite risk factor to leave it the way it is and expect that diversion is going to go down and criminality is going to go down when people have to make a choice between surviving or going back to something they already knew. And I think that that's the question. At what point is it enough? 52 burglaries from January 1st, and then all of the diversions that we're tracking, there's a crisis looming here.
The bootleggers and the moonshiners and the,
Yeah, similar, very similar. So,
where's the drummer.
yeah, so it is, and I'm surprised sometimes when I get a phone call that, yeah, I have one of your licensees in North Carolina and he has 100 pounds of marijuana and he left the metric tags from his shop on the marijuana. It's pretty easy to know who to call. But that happens more than you think. At BHO Labs, which is the basically distilling process of marijuana, when law enforcement goes to unlawful locations, the last two they've went to, one had 4 tags there and one had 5 tags there from separate businesses. There are some folks that are doing it right. I will tell you that too. There are some folks that are doing it right, and most of them that are doing it right are doing pretty well.
Which story did we have?
We investigated, so that's a diversion. Yeah, we can get to that point. There was one, that had the 3 tags, and all 3 of those folks we had put out of business within the last year. So that was hey, it did work. But we didn't catch all of their product, obviously, when it was going out.
Is there a reward system for finding tags out of the state that obviously shouldn't be out of the state?
No,
There's not a,
but law enforcement, trust me, if law enforcement runs into somebody from Oregon, they're calling us by the number of calls that has marijuana. They're looking to see if they're part of our program or not. And if they're not, if they're not a licensee or never, a worker permit or anything associated, we give them straight to the state police and they work through it. So even if it has a tag or not a tag, some of the states are pretty unfriendly. Nebraska is very unfriendly, just so you know. They're very unfriendly. They're very busy on that highways in Nebraska. All the places that I wouldn't think. And then don't mail yourself marijuana in Las Vegas from Oregon. Just don't do that either. So I kind of make fun of it, but yeah, there's some goofy stuff that does happen. One thing I was going to hand out to each one of you, one of the things in state service that's very difficult is rewarding people. As you know, we can't give Christmas bonuses, even though Tara promised me one. That, you don't get Christmas bonus, you don't get extra pay bumps, you don't get extra days off. We give out challenge coins in public safety for a job well done. This one is our BMMR, and when we think about BMMR, it's the Build, Move, Modernize that Tara brought to us in organizing the projects. But we give out challenge coins, and they're pretty well sought after by the folks in at the OLCC. We give several out every month and recognize employees, but this one is BMMR and camp. We have a Bigfoot on roller skates on one side, and then on the other side, it's a thank you from us. I'm going to give each one of you one of these. But we try to, when Dennis talks about recognizing employees and thinking about the work that we do here, I think it's really important that you guys know that, you may only get the calls from the folks that work at OLCC that are upset about something or anything else, but the staff has done a very good job of trying to make sure that folks know at OLCC when they're doing a good job that they get recognized. And that came in when Tara started. And so I think it's very important. And so I wanted to show you what we're doing and how we're doing it. I have about 5 different coins for different reasons, but we do try to do a good job. And when you're in the commission meetings and you say thank you, if you haven't noticed, a lot of the people in the audience in the meetings are employees. All of them tune in. They care about what you say. And there has been times in the past where there has been critical words, and I will tell you that is probably the most stifling thing I've ever seen at OLCC to cut through the employees. So I guess this is my pitch to, there are a lot of people doing a lot of hard work to get things done, and they do a lot of good work. And, sometimes they're not recognized as, I'll use your term, Pappygate caused a you know, a negative connotation over the agency, but I will tell you, there's a lot of good people doing a lot of hard work on a daily basis, and a lot of them, you have to send them home at the end of the day because they have so much commitment to what they're doing. So you may wanted to share that with you. So I'll pass these out.
Be kind. I was thinking you and Wozniak and Lisa, you need your own action figures. Kate,
No.
I'm gonna commission that. I like we could 3D that somewhere. Oh, and Laura.
Kid,
Oh.
for silver dollars.
Oh, that you put them in?
You put 'em in.
So there are.
All right.
Yeah.
You can buy.
On that note, I think we should take our final little break and then come back for any final conversations that the group wants to have before we summarize the day and a half we've spent together. So maybe just come back at 10 after. Short break, just for, we do, it's 5:45.
You okay?
All right.
He was out doing his workout. Ready.
So we're going to do a couple things. I'm going to do 3 fun facts, and then we'll finish the rest at dinner. These 3 are all very similar, which is why I'm going to do all 3 together and quickly. So pay attention and be thinking about them. And they all have a similar theme, which is why I'm doing them all together. They all have to do with the numbers 3, 4, and 5. Okay. So one is I have 3 dogs.
Do we know that answer?
One is I've been married 4 times. And 5 is I have met 5 US presidents. And these 3 people, I'm sure, did not coordinate on this 3, 4, 5 theme I just went through. So 3 dogs, married 4 times, met 5 US presidents.
I would say the
I'd say negative $3.
Nick, are you the 3 dogs? No.
Oh, that's Matt.
Matt,
Matt and 3 dog night.
all right. 4 was just married, 4 times married. Rich? No.
I don't have one in there, but I have not been.
It's me.
You?
You.
I've been married 4 times to the same person.
Oh.
Church wedding, multnomah was annulled, domestic partnership, and then a legal marriage. And I didn't say 4 divorces. I said been
Just married 4
times.
times.
I know. See? Oh, you had a divorce. I've never had a divorce. I've just had 3 marriages or 4 marriages. So
And then met 5 US presidents. That was the 5. Rich, okay.
Rich. Oh.
Which 5? Which 5, Rich?
Bush,
Bush.
Obama, Jimmy Carter.
Oh.
And.
Okay. Abe Lincoln.
Is that fun?
It was not fun. They were arguing the entire.
That's awesome.
She was yelling at him. It was bad.
Oh my
We're
God.
not on the air.
Exactly.
8 hours.
What was Obama like?
He doesn't like police officers.
Oh, interesting.
Yours is quite nice to hear the progression of what you described. So that's kind of a good story to hear.
well, I wouldn't say it's such a great story because it may be a chance for a 5th wedding in 10 or 12 years, depending on what happens.
Oh, well, there we go. Think about that.
Always a fight.
Yeah. I mean, my wife and I thought it would be fun to get married again just because the wedding was so much fun. But then we think about how much it costs, and then that idea gets dropped.
You know, you can really only ask for gifts once.
Okay.
Really?
So what we want to do to wrap up, as Sharon said, we're going to do the remaining fun facts tonight. And then there's been a suggestion that maybe we go back to this. How did you end up as a commissioner? But that we'll save that for dinner if you want to talk about that. But what we'd like to do to wrap up is just have each of you share key takeaways, ahas, sort of what you've drawn out of the retreat session. You could also provide feedback, or maybe we'll have a chance to do that later for, next time we ought to do this. But we'll just focus today on the key takeaways, but we do want to get your feedback in terms of if there's another retreat, if and when there's another retreat, how can it be enhanced from what we did this time? It's always looking to improve, continuous improvement being a key value. So someone like to start with their thoughts about how this session has been. Looks like you have. you're
I
ready
will
to go.
start. Commissioner Warren.
Okay.
My key takeaway is from Rich's presentation, there is a lot that this agency does that needs to be front and center, that the public needs to understand. So again, I'm going to beat the drum so they can get behind a government body that is essential to this state.
Okay. I'm slow writing. Next. And we can come back and you can do more than one, by the way, but we'll take
Don't
one
do
at a
me.
time. Okay.
Oh, no, all three mics are on this side of the table.
Talk a lot.
I'll just read this side is a little.
I've got a takeaway.
Okay.
So when I came to this, I was like, oh, if we could just figure out how to apply some good stuff from our alcohol regulation to our cannabis regulation, maybe that would help. And I wanted to hear more about how we could transfer those principles. And now I understand how different these two products are. And thinking about how the federal government regulates cannabis and how that impacts, and including banking, how that impacts the way Oregon cannabis industries operate and how the OLCC regulates. It sounds very much like this is very complex, much like maybe a very complex casserole, and how are we going to help cannabis? We have great people on the ground at the OLCC, and we just need to keep really leaning into that. And there's so much happening at the OLCC right now. I think that's another takeaway, is that generational changes have happened and are happening. And so being appreciative of those human beings that are part of that process is one of my huge takeaways as well. Thank you very much for the floor.
I yield my time.
To Commissioner Hay.
Is that Robert's Rules of Order we're practicing there?
It's Senate hearings.
I love the side of Commissioner Chowry.
I'm just so grateful I'm here. There's so much that happened.
All right. Next volunteer. Eventually I'll start picking people. So either volunteer or you'll get called on.
I don't know that I have a single takeaway. I kind of have a better idea of my role as a commissioner, and I guess some just curiosity about several of the conversations we've had today about store valuation, about our role as commissioners, about the cannabis stuff. So kind of areas that I'm interested in, not a lot of answers to those, but that's a
Mhm.
good first step.
Good.
Takeaways are, I know my fellow commissioners and staff better,
Mhm.
getting to know where their buttons are and how to put, just getting to know where we're just getting to know people and building that, continuing to build that trust that we may not always agree, but we can get along. And then just the depth, some of my blind spots, which I won't share with you, that staff has provided information to help kind of give me a more rounded picture of everything that OLCC does,
Mhm.
not just the parts that we tend to touch most. Those are my takeaways. You guys need a mic down there?
It's like a press conference. Yeah. I guess the last talk impressed upon me the complexity of the situation with cannabis that I don't think I fully appreciated. And in many ways it does seem pretty overwhelming. And kind of without even being within 1,000 miles of a simple solution. So that's good for me to hear, just because in my circles, for whatever reason, we sublease to a cannabis grower at one of our places, and my daughter's friends' parents two of them are in the business. So I hear a lot about this, but I didn't really know enough to have an opinion. So yeah, it's pretty humbling. What's going on and knowing where to go with it.
No, I think it's recognizing, I'm glad. I heard a lot of this, but I think everybody's recognizing, I think how challenging it's been. We try to, because there is no simple solutions. There's a lot of frustration on the cannabis side. I think the alcohol side, it has stayed relatively the same. They are not apples to apples by any means. And there's not even really easy comparison other than structurally just looking at what has worked or what may have worked. So yeah, just it's been good to hear everyone's perspective and kind of get a sense of where everyone's at, and yeah, just get a better understanding of where everyone's at.
Great.
Yeah, when I dreamt this up of having this retreat and the kind of ideas that I had, I was pretty nervous about it because I didn't know if everybody wanted to have a retreat. Everybody's busier than hell doing all their own stuff. The topics that I wanted to talk about, I'm thinking, oh, it's just going to be dead air out here because people might not be thinking the same way I am. And you opened it up, Alicia, and we're just in alignment with values and environments of where we wanted to go and how we wanted to be together. And you did the same thing, Tomiko. It made it a lot easier for me, but so the great takeaway I have from this is that we do share the same values and what we're trying to do and serving the state, serving a bit of a higher cause. And so that was a relief to me. I felt, Matt and I are kind of, for a while, we're just every day involved in this. And then you guys come in once a month, and that was not fair to you because we've got all this activity that's been going on. And it was another way that I wanted to bring you in, and it seems to be working. So I appreciate that. I appreciate the vulnerability of this group, the honesty and openness, and the trust and permission we're given to each other to challenge and to be different and still holding the same values. So thank you very much for that. The second part of this is the incredible staff that we have, how smart, how dedicated, how much effort they're putting into this request to do this, to take 2 days out. I mean, these presentations that they brought to us don't come out of thin air. So there was so much time put into this before they even get here. And it was put together in a way that I can understand it. It's complex. It's important. And it's also a relief that we have this kind of staff that we can call on and that are actually running this place. There's a relief to that. And so I want to thank all of you staff for taking the time and doing the professional job you do, and also for creating the atmosphere in the agency
that makes these great things possible. For the tough things that are coming off, I know we can do it, but I know that the culture is rising because of what you do and how you do it in the leadership and showing the way. So thank you all for that. It builds confidence in us, or it certainly doesn't mean, I know I've heard that the same from the rest of you. So thank you all for this effort that you put in. And for YouTube, this has been tremendous. I was not prepared for it all, so
Oh,
I'm glad that you helped guide us.
well, you kind of gave the vision and we just tried to make it happen the way you described it. So
Well,
it was actually our pleasure, and it's always an honor to serve any client, and particularly one that we've worked with in the past and have a passion for the success of OLCC and Tara and her team. When we first knew Tara, she was just a baby deputy, or no, but a deputy director, and now she's a full-blown director, executive director. I see I'm getting all titles all wrong. I will just you're learning. As follow-up to this, we will be making notes and kind of feeding back to you, assuming you like that, some notes from the session. We'll also look for next steps that kind of came out of the conversation. We'll check that with the chair and with Tara and her team, because we're not going to throw out next steps that are going to require major initiatives. But
I think Tara said she wanted to do this once a month. Tara, is that?
But particularly things that are within your control, or that you guys can do that don't necessarily require a lot of staff effort. Actually, if there are any things that you think of that you want to make sure we don't forget, go ahead and I think we have, well, you can send them to Laura. We'll put those together, but if you think, oh, I want to make sure you don't forget this particular next step, if you could send a note to Laura, that way we'll make sure to capture it. Or you can mention it tonight at dinner, whenever. So I think with that, we're done, but we have to have an official adjournment. Any other final comments? Tara, did you have anything to say to wrap up? Okay.
With that, meeting is adjourned.